Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sharing group. Today's Course in Miracles lesson is lesson 69, which states, "My grievances hide the light of the world in me. My grievances hide the light of the world in me." And our guest, everyone, has always known he's had a light since he was a child. A.J. Parr, a holistic spiritual journalist and author of the 2023 book, Stairway to Heaven, 25 near-death experiences about encounters with God, Jesus, and paradise, shares with us how a series of mystical experiences, starting when he was a child, led him to study comparative religion for over 40 years and become a journalistic NDE researcher. AJ, thank you so much for joining the sharing group. We are so excited to have you here today.
Well, thanks for that great introduction, Loretta, and thank you for inviting me. And yes, I'm ready for this.
Yes, I am too. So start wherever you think you would like to start, AJ.
Well, we can start from my new book. I just released it in January. It's called Stairway to Heaven, 25 Near-Death Experiences about Encounters with God, Jesus, and Paradise. So the story of this book is basically that I was researching near-death experiences after doing for decades doing a research on comparative religion. After this, I got into near-death experiences and decided to conduct what I call a journalistic research. What did I do? I interviewed 25 near-death experiencers, and of these 25, I found that 15 of them had encounters either with God, Jesus, or with paradise, okay? So I got these 15, and I looked for the common or repetitive elements of their experiences. So I call these experiences heavenly NDEs. The condition is either you meet God, Jesus, or you go to heaven. So when I started comparing, I found a series of elements, such as meeting the light, hearing God's voice, visiting the lobby of heaven, meeting Jesus Christ, having life review, etc. The difference from this approach, if you compare it to Raymond Moody and Bruce Grayson and all the others who have pointed out the most common elements of NDEs, is the following. The common elements they point out include what I call non-mystical elements, such as the tunnel, out-of-body experience. Perhaps your heart stops, you leave your body, you see the surgeons working on you, you go around the hospital, and then you come back into your body. Okay, so you had a near-death experience, of course, but it was only in the out-of-body level, okay? So that does not really count as a heavenly NDE or even as a mystical NDE. So the tunnel is not really an element that I would consider mystical. Of course, it is impactful and strange and all that. But the light in the end of the tunnel, that is mystical. Why? Because this is a light that everyone describes not only as brilliant, but it also gives out love, gives out peace, gives out wisdom and wholeness. You feel one with all. Okay, so this is a very mystical light. People say it's God. Others say it's the light of God. Others who don't believe in God or don't like to use that name, they call it the the light of the universe or the light of reality, or they give it different names. Okay, but it is the light of the highest of all beings and of our creator. Okay, so it has been defined in different ways. So what did I do? I practically allowed everyone to share their experiences. Some of them were, a few of the people I interviewed were like hardcore Christians, and some of others were not. So I did not differentiate. I did not consider make a difference based on their spiritual beliefs. No, it doesn't matter if you're a hardcore Christian or if you are a New Ager that believes in reincarnation and all that. I had all different types of near-death experiencers, and they all shared these common elements. Some of them were really amazing, and I can mention a few details like hearing God's voice. This is something that it was like a big coincidence, because many people before having their near-death experiences started hearing a voice, like Yvonne Kaysen, when her plane was falling down, she heard a voice. The plane was about to crash. She knew she was going to die, and she heard a voice that said, "Be still and know that I am God."
I love that. That's actually a scripture.
Yes, it's from the Bible. It
Yeah,
is.
love that.
That's something else I noticed. Some of these conversations with this voice that some people say it is the voice of God. Uh, they they are really religious or mystical. Okay, so there are some other cases like one guy who had a heart attack, and he heard a voice that said, "You're going to die. Prepare yourself. Call an ambulance." And that gave him time to call an ambulance and all that. And he did die on the way to the hospital, and he did meet Jesus. And there are a number of persons who have heard God's voice, and I pointed this out as an interesting element. Each chapter of the book is a different element. So we have 9 common elements. We have basically 9 chapters in the book.
Okay.
There is an additional chapter about hellish experiences, okay, which are not as common as heavenly, or people who have had hellish experiences don't go out and say it as much as people who have had heavenly experiences. So I did include 2 of them.
Hey, can I ask you a question about that?
Yes, go ahead, of course.
Have you found, just based on, the folks you've interviewed in your research, that the people who have had hellish, like the people who have gone to hell, right? Have
Right.
you found that they may have didn't feel right with God and sent themselves to hell, or have you found, and was it, and of course it was temporary, sounds like, or do you, is it your belief that some kind of entity sent them to hell?
No entity. The only entity is you, which according to the theory of oneness, we are all one and there is only one being in this universe.
Yeah.
But no, I believe that when you have a hellish experience, and you can have this also in nightmares, you don't have to die to have a hellish experience.
Mhm.
The only thing with hellish experiences, according to the people I have interviewed and those I've seen, is that you do not think of God, Jesus, or any spiritual being. You don't ask for help. You don't even think about anything spiritual. So they are trapped in this hell, but they forget about spirituality. They forget they can ask, or they forget there is a God, or probably they don't even believe in God. So they forget they can ask for help. Because some of these people, as soon as they ask for help, they get the help.
Yes.
There are also people who have told me that they have not asked for help, but they have thought about God, and then that has taken them out of hell. I don't believe in hell. It is a hellish experience. And just like a near-death experience, it is created within you, and each person has a different interpretation of what goes on, according to, well, there's a big study on that. Basically, according to your cultural beliefs and spiritual beliefs, also the time in which you were born. Because if you were born 3,000 years ago, you would not talk about Jesus. Does this mean that you could not be a Christian? Of course you could. I believe that 3,000 years ago, there were good people who liked to help others, who had near-death experiences, and they knew that they had met God, they had met Jesus, but they did not call him Jesus. What did they call him? Well, I believe each person gives it or him the name it can. For example, if you're in Alaska 3,000 years ago and you're an Eskimo and you see Jesus, who has not even been born, you will say he is an Eskimo god. Okay? And if the same goes, if you're an Egyptian, you might say it's Osiris. If you're in Greece or Rome, you might say it's Apollo. So I believe this being is eternal, has always been present. This is not going against the Christian teachings, because in the Bible it is said that Jesus has always been there. Jesus said, before, I think it was Moses and Elijah, I am. They asked him who he was. And he said, more or less, that he has always been. And I believe that. I believe that this Son of God, which is the manifestation of God, or the God, which is formless, nameless, it's like energy, has to take form in order to communicate with us. So he takes a human appearance. Some people see him as, I see Jesus as a light being. They cannot see his face. He is full of light. He is, people who see Jesus and who see people in heaven, they always describe them as wearing white robes, also as light beings. So interestingly enough, in the gospel, there is a small part called the transfiguration of Jesus. He takes several apostles up to a hill, and there he turns into a being of light. He is described as his white robe shone like the sun, and his face shone with bright light. So this is exactly what near-death experiencers see, and it's written in the Bible. So that is something worth noticing. Okay, you cannot prove anything scientifically, but it's there. So I think that's really interesting. So
Well,
yes, people.
AJ, what I have found is I know that certain names are triggering for some people. So what I love about the near-death experience is instead of being religious, it can include Jesus, it can include Buddha, Krishna,
Yes,
angels. It's kind of like a step back from religion. And like you said, depending on that person's belief system, they may see people or may not. And I know that for some people, certain names things have been done to people in the name of God, in the name of Jesus, and it's triggering for them. So yeah, like you said, whatever the language, source, the creator, we have different
yes,
names that pretty much mean the same thing. Like you said, the light being. So yeah, I find that fascinating.
yes. I had noticed also that before I wrote this book, I spent 9 years writing books on different religions, and I started out uh, like 40 years ago studying different religions, and I did what is known as a comparative study of religion or a comparative religion research. So what I found is that although each religion is different, their roots are all the same. So there is basically one basic teaching, which is all is one.
Mhm.
Okay, that is you can give it the name you want: God, Allah, Brahman,
Mhm.
Brahman, and the Tao. You can give it any name, but what I study is that it has no name, it has no form, it cannot be defined, it cannot be imagined.
Mhm. Mhm.
It can be perceived, yes,
Mhm.
but can it be described? No. It's like, okay, can you taste chocolate? Yes. Can you describe the taste of chocolate to someone who has never tasted it? No, you can't. Can you describe what it feels like to jump into a swimming pool or the sea and, jump into the water? You cannot describe that. Can you describe music? No, you cannot. So life and reality is basically ineffable. So during my research, I found that I was interested in knowing what the high philosophers of the Christian church, of the Hindu religion, and all the different religions, how did they describe this powerful being, God, whatever?
Mhm.
And I found there was one word that they all used, and it is the word ineffable.
Mhm.
That word means that it cannot be described, you cannot put it into words. So people like Saint Thomas of Aquinas, and other saints, they reached that conclusion. They said that you cannot really talk about God because God cannot be described.
Mhm.
And in the Tao, the Chinese, they say, the Tao that you speak about is not the Tao. So you replace that with God. The God that you speak about is not God,
Mhm. Mhm.
because when you give it a name and you give it a form
Mhm.
somehow, it ceases to be what it is.
Mhm. Mhm.
Basically, it's in another dimension, or it's in a higher dimension. So it cannot be. It's like trying to explain to someone who lives in 2 dimensions what 3 dimensions are. So it's impossible. So I found that a lot of religions, apart from saying that it is ineffable, they also say it is light. So that is something, that I've seen in many religions. they say that, for example, in the Bible basically begins with God saying, "Let there be light," and there was light. And what did he do? He separated the light from darkness, and that light was the basis of his work. Okay? So even the people, the Kabbalists, the Hebrews who have studied the secret knowledge, they believe that they define God as the light that illuminates all souls. So that is something really interesting. In Christianity, we have that God is light. It is said that God is light, and in him there is no darkness. So this definition of God as light is not only present in among the Judaism and Christianity, but also in Hinduism, the Bhagavad Gita, where in this ancient writing in which Krishna, Lord Krishna, talks to Arjuna, his disciple. He tells him, he talks about the sun, and he says that the sun is the symbol of the Supreme Self, who is the source and end of all beings, and who is the ultimate goal of knowledge. So this is really interesting, and it goes on. Buddhism, it is said that Buddha's last words were, "Doubt everything and be your own light." Basically, discover the light that you have within, and you will discover what you're looking for.
I was going to ask you, okay, so of the folks the NDEers that you've interviewed, what comes to mind as the most profound and impactful to you personally? Like what were their stories and experiences?
Okay, look, I must say that when I started interviewing people, it was because I met a Spanish writer, and we became friends, and she had a near-death experience. We had many conversations about spirituality, God, and all that. And when I decided to do my research, the first person I interviewed really transformed me. And there was another person that also highly impressed me. How? Well, it was basically because of their life reviews. Okay, so T.S. Dismas, the first of them, he was an ex-army vet. He was an army vet, and he had heart issues. So he was having a heart surgery, when his heart stopped. And okay, he had a near-death experience. He went to heaven and talked to God. But when he talked to me about his life review, it was the first time I realized that when we go to heaven, we are not judged by God or by anyone else. We are judged by ourselves. And how are we judged? We are judged based on reliving what we did when we hurt other people, also when you made them happy. But basically what the transformative part is, you get to relive your life in the moments when you hurt other people, and you can feel what you felt back then, but you can also feel what the person you hurt felt, and you can also feel what other people who were observing the scene felt. So you get to see yourself through their eyes. You get to see yourself as a monster, I guess, So when he told me that, and he told me about how he was transformed, I said, wow, I have it all wrong. I have it all wrong. I was seeking spirituality or enlightenment based on the idea that if I learn how to do astral travels or meet my spirit guides or do this or do that, I would be worth reaching heaven and God and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he said, you are not judged by what you do, by your merits. You are judged on how you treat people. Okay, that is the basis of your judgment. How did you treat people? Not what did you do? So I said, wow, I have it all wrong. You see, it doesn't matter if you communicate with angels. It doesn't matter if you can read the future. It doesn't matter if you can have this or that spiritual power, or if you're a president of a nation, if you have a successful company, if you have done this or that. That doesn't matter. What matters is how do you treat people?
Mm-hmm.
Because those other people are you.
Exactly.
So, and one thing that Jesus told T.S. Dismas, it was that he loved him no matter what, and that it was he basically made him feel that it was okay. I mean, it was his mistake; those were his mistakes, but he loved him the same way. I mean, God, even if you're bad, will not stop loving you because you are His son. I mean, we are all God, really. So
This is
this is
profound. That is profound. And I wanted to camp out on that a little bit because AG, you and I know that a part of the reason why we have our YouTube channels, and AJ Parr has a YouTube channel where he too interviews near-death experiencers. So check that out. I have that in the description. But a part of the reason why we do this is to break down the conditioning that many of us, not all of us, but many of us have gone through in terms of the fear of damnation, this hell that we'll forever experience if we don't go through these rituals that's been set up by the church, and the perception that our creator, whether we want to say God or source or whatever, is this vengeful, angry being. And that's the freedom of the near-death experience. Is what you're saying is the only judgment we experience is when we do the life review, and it's us that are judging ourselves. And it is profound, AJ, when you talk about the review. The life review is profound, and we often hear that we are one. And so once we transition, we experience that we're one. Like you said, if I've heard an NDE say as a kid, he threw a rock and hit another kid. Well, he experienced throwing that rock, but he also experienced that other child being hit by that rock. So that is a profound experience for us, because in this dimension, we think that we're separate, and we're not.
Yes, we're not.
Yeah.
That is the illusion, the Maya. That's why people say, are we living in a matrix? Of course we are, because we are God. We are one. This is a game God is playing. We are all the same person.
Yes.
So it is kind of a matrix for many reasons. Also, I had, well, like you mentioned in the beginning, I had a spiritually transformative experience when I turned 34. I had always, when I was a kid, I had always had dreams and nightmares. So when I was 7 years old, I spontaneously learned how to wake up in my dreams. And first I realized I was dreaming within the dream. And sometimes I could change the dream, and other times I could simply escape. Because I managed to do this after having many nightmares, I suddenly realized, hey, this must be a dream. So I tried to control the dream. For example, if there were some people chasing me, I tried to stop that. And if I couldn't, I said, okay, it's time to wake up, wake up, wake up. And I could wake up. Okay. So I learned that when I was a kid. Then when I was about 17, I learned how to meditate. I was initiated by this sect of the 70s, which was called the Divine Light Mission by Guru Maharaji. Okay, this was an Indian guru who traveled the world, and in the 70s he established different schools. So I was living in Venezuela, and they opened up a center there, and I was initiated, and I learned 4 meditation techniques. And after a year or two, I had a spiritually transformative experience in which I was meditating, and I felt one with the universe. And I got up, and I felt that when I was breathing, the whole universe was breathing with me. I was outside, so I could see the sky, the mountains. They were all breathing with me. So I had that experience, and after that, I felt that I did not have to pursue a spiritual quest because I had already known all the answers, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I went on with my life. I was always interested in reading about different religions because I was exposed to this Hindu teachings, and they talked to me. This Guru Maharaji, he talked not only about Hinduism, he talked about Buddha, he talked about Taoism, and he talked about Jesus. So it was a teaching of oneness. Okay, all religions are basically one. So I like that. So I started studying different religions, and I did learn different types of meditation with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I was also into the Silva mind control program. I did various studies, and I also became a Freemason. I learned about the Hermetic teachings, the Kybalion, metaphysics, and I learned that there were these ancient schools like the Rosicrucians and like the Templars who had this secret knowledge. Okay, and they said that the Freemasons nowadays contained or kept that secret knowledge. Mm. I also read about the invisible spirit guides known as the White Brotherhood. Mm. So I got into that. I had dreams, and I had sort of communications with higher beings, and in the Freemasonry, you have to pass certain tests in order to ascend into a higher grade. Mm. So similarly, in dreams, through dreams, I did go through different tests because I always wanted to be accepted in that invisible school. Okay, so I had several dreams and all that, but I really wanted to be enlightened. I really wanted to feel that transformation. Mm-hmm. So when I turned 33, I told God, okay, this is the year, this is it. Jesus died when he was 33. I'm 33 and I have not been enlightened. So this is the year. So when I turned 34, although I had many STEs, I had not had this huge transformation or this huge experience. So I told God, forget about it. I'm not going to continue because I had been on this quest for many years. Mm-hmm. So I said, no, God, forget about it. I'm not going to continue. I think I'm not worth it, simply. Okay. So 2 weeks later, I woke up in the middle of the night and it was completely dark. I could not even see my hands. And it was terrifying because it was completely dark. And I said, hey, wait, maybe this is a dream. I said, let me try to wake up. And what? I woke up. Okay, it was a dream. So the next night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, could not see my hands, not see anything. And I stayed there a little bit longer.
Okay.
But I started imagining that in that darkness, there could be someone else or something. It's like when you're a kid and they tell you to go into a dark room or you have to cross a dark hall and you imagine monsters and whatever you run. Okay, more or less that feeling I had. So I felt that there was a presence in the darkness. So I said, okay, I got to wake up. And I woke up. I said, wow, this is weird. Why is this, two nights in a row? What is this? The third night, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, could not see my hands. And I said, wow, no, not again. And I decided to stay there a little bit more. And when I felt that presence, I heard a voice. And it said, calm down, all is one.
Mm.
Since I had my oneness experience, I said, hey, that guy who's talking, maybe he's me. Maybe I am him, because if all is one, I decided to trust.
Mm.
And this feeling I had in my chest, because when you're scared, you feel something in your chest. It's sort of a feeling of emptiness, okay? You also feel that same feeling of emptiness in your chest when you jump, when you're in a car and you go over a bump. You feel that expansion within you, okay? So I realized that feeling I had in the middle of my chest was not fear. It was growing. It was not fear, but it was growing. It was growing within me, and it was empty, and it was huge, and it was growing and growing, and I had to trust, that all was one. So I did what they said. But this was growing, and it's growing and growing and growing and growing, and I said, wow, and poof, I appeared in another place, in another dimension. I could see up, down, to the left, to the right, to all directions at the same time. I had like what they call a 360-degree vision. I could see from the center of where I was to the infinite end, opposite end. I could see rays of light emanating in all directions. Light, there was light everywhere. And I could also see between each ray a small space of emptiness. Okay, these rays of light had like empty spaces between them.
Mm.
And this was like infinite in all directions. I could not think. I could not, while I was there,
Mm-hmm.
there were no thoughts. There was a bliss. There was also a sound like a whoosh.
Mm.
I don't know. It cannot be described. Okay, these are ineffable experiences. So, how can you see up and down and to the right and to the left in all directions? You cannot do that in 3D, but I guess that in a higher dimension you can. And I also realized that was sort of like my true state. That was who I really was.
Mm.
So all of a sudden, I came back and I was in my bed and I said, wow, what is this? I was totally shocked. Okay. So I felt I was one with everything. I got up in my room and I felt I was one with the floor, walls, everything. So I went up to the wall and I pressed with my hand against the wall. And I was my hand against the wall, but I was also the wall pushing against my hand.
Wow.
Wow. So this lasted like for 1 or 2 weeks. I had this sensation. I would walk and I would feel that I was like a sphere. That I was like a sphere instead of this body. Okay. And I could feel more or less that I was back there, and I still can. I can still remember. And each time I remember, I reach like a feeling of presence. It's like a meditation, okay? But I had to develop this through years of practice because in the beginning I could not. So I had these two or three, like 2 weeks in which I started getting downloads. I started getting a lot of information. One of the most important downloads I got was I felt the presence of an old man. Of course, he was invisible, but he was like spiritual. I felt his presence. He was there, but he was old, so old it made me cry.
Mm.
It made me cry because he was too old. He was, wow, you're so old. And I had the feeling that he was the first human or the first non-God conscious. And then I felt this loneliness, this huge loneliness. And then I had like a download that said, in the beginning was the one.
Mm. Mm.
But the one wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
So he divided himself into two and gave himself amnesia. And that's how the game began.
I love that.
Yes, after that. So I said, wow, since I had already read so many books and all that, I said, wow, I have to write the book. I'll be famous, whatever. And I started thinking, I have to write this. I have to write this down. And I started working on it. And during those days, I had this other like experience in which I felt it wasn't a voice I could hear, but it was a voice that I could understand within me. And it said one single word, why? I understood that he was asking me, why do you seek the higher knowledge? Why do you seek the spiritual knowledge? Why are you into this quest? Why do you want this from me? Why do you touch the sacred door and expect it to open for you, mortal? You mortal? And I did not answer. A voice from me answered, and it said, I want to write a book. And I said, oh, no, that cannot be the reason. You cannot go up to God and expect him to give you higher knowledge. And he asks you, why do you want this? You should say, to help humanity, or because I want to be better, because I want. No, I want to write a book and be famous. So I said, I felt so embarrassed. I swore I would never, ever write a book or tell my story. And I started doing this for the first time after 33 years. I did that last year. For the first time, I openly talked about my story on Spiritual Awakenings International. And I have also been in sharing groups in IANS, but I have never written down my story yet. I will now. But although I was not allowed to talk about my experience, this was self-imposed, I now realize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I continued my research, So around 10 years ago, I said, hey, I have to write everything I've researched. Okay, I will not mention my experiences, okay, but I will mention things like the secret teachings of Jesus, okay, the basis of Buddhism and Buddhist meditation, the basic teachings of Hinduism and how they relate to Buddhism and Christianity. Zen Buddhism, what is that? Ramana Maharshi. So I started writing books about spirituality, and during these last 10 years, I wrote books, but I never mentioned anything. So about 40 years ago, I met Tessa Romero, who's a Spanish writer, and we became friends, like I mentioned. And when I talked to her, when we talked about religion, she told me, no, I had this experience with the light. And I said, so did I. And she said, yes, when I experienced the light, I had 360-degree vision. And I said, so did I. Mm-hmm. And I was, amazed because I had never found someone else who had had a similar experience. I did contact many people from these religions I wrote about. Even a guy who was a Buddhist who lived in Tibet with the lamas for 2 years. They could not explain what I experienced. None of them. Mm. So when I met Tessa Romero, I also translated her book in English. She wrote a book called 24 Minutes on the Other Side, about her near-death experience. And when she told me about her 360-degree vision, I started watching YouTube videos, and I noticed that was like a common trait. So when I interviewed T.S. Dismas, who was the first person I already mentioned, he was an ex-Army officer, was in the military police. So he told me that when he went to heaven, he had 360-degree vision. Mm-hmm. He could see in all directions. And I said, wait a minute. And I have noticed that this is a characteristic, a common element, this 360-degree vision. And also this feeling of oneness. A lot of people have had oneness experiences within their near-death experiences. So although I am doing this research as a journalist, objectively, and trying to seek for answers, I am also doing this as part of my spiritual quest. Because, like I told you, the light is present in all religions. Mm-hmm. All religions say that the source, God, Brahman, Allah, whatever, is light, ineffable, love. They all more or less define it as the same. And I feel that is my job. My job is to continue investigating and continue researching. That's basically it.
Well, that is a beautiful experience, AJ. And thank you so much for sharing your personal journey and your personal spiritual experiences. And
thank you
for your intention, of wanting folks to have access to the truth. I love that. Let me ask you this. Do you think that the creator, God, source, sends NDEers back to tell the truth of his or her character, right? So we all have this perception. A lot of people have perception that God is this angry being. Do you think that's a part of the reason why folks are being sent? Now, I do know that I've read from your book where they talk about how NDEs are more common because the medical industry has evolved and gotten more sophisticated. And so there's, technologies in place to bring people back to life. But do you think that there's an intention for the creator to have people come back and say, oh my gosh, I experienced this love? I'm homosexual, or I, held a grudge against my mom or whatever, but I still experience this unconditional love. Do you think that's
Yes.
part of the reason?
Yes. Some of them are told you have to go back and tell everyone about this.
Yeah.
Death is not the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, uh, going back to my example, T.S. Dismas, when he came back, he quit his job. He got into helping homeless people, and he opened a foundation, and now he works helping others. Okay. There was another ex-cop, Robert Baer, who also had an impactful life review, and he also today he works helping homeless vets. So he too quit his job. Well, he has another job, but he works helping homeless people. So this transformation or this mission they received before coming back, I think it is the basis of a global spiritual transformation. The more NDEers we have, the more chances are of having good people, of having spiritual guides. There are also some of them who come back with powers like healing powers,
Yeah.
and although some of them continue being hardcore Christians or hardcore Buddhists, a lot of them understand that all religions represent the same truth in the bottom, in the
Mm.
roots. And that we can all share this knowledge. It doesn't matter what religion you belong to, because like Carlos Vivas found out when he went to heaven and asked Jesus, "What is the religion here in heaven?" And he said, "No, no, no, no. In heaven there is no religion. You will only find love."
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
love is the religion.
Love is the religion. I love that. Love is the religion. Did you find, AJ, that did you have any, after your spiritual experience, did you have any psychic abilities, or anything like that after your experience?
Well, the only thing I noticed is that when I had my experience, my second one experience, when I merged with the light, I could understand better than ever the parts of the scriptures that talked about this secret knowledge.
Mm.
And I think I found Jesus, the secret teachings of Jesus. I was able to discover. I wrote a book about that. But one of the reasons I wrote this book is because I would read the Gospels, for example, and I could see the parts that were added and the parts that were originally written by the real spiritual master behind the writings. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. So there are certain parts, for example, the transfiguration. This part I noticed this recently, but I could tell when God was talking, when Jesus was talking about the basic teaching in all religions. What is the basic teachings? The basic teaching in all religion? That this is an illusion. This is Maya. This is an illusion. Okay? This is a matrix. You can call it whatever. We think we are individuals, but we're not. So this world of illusion, in this world of illusion, you have to deal with emotions and things that can trap you.
Mm-hmm.
For example, you can suffer all your life. You can kill yourself, like you talked about. You can feel really rotten. And what you mentioned, when people want to kill themselves, it doesn't mean that they want to die. They want to continue living, but they want to get rid of whatever's bothering them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, pain. Yeah.
So this is very important. I think that humanity right now is going through a new stage in which near-death experiencers, which are growing due to what you mentioned, there are more ways of reviving, resuscitating people when they die.
Mhm.
So more people are coming back, especially those who have whose hearts stop. They can be resuscitated with equipment that are more effective each year. Okay, so I think this is going to bring a global transformation, a global spiritual, uh, let's call awakening, or it could be compared to like the Renaissance.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, what happened during the Renaissance? Well, there were famous artists and scientists and all that. It doesn't mean that everyone became enlightened. No, this spiritual awakening will occur to those who are seeking spiritual evolution, but not to those who decide not to, because here we have free will. And also we have, although everything is non-dual, there all is one, in this 3D, we are living in a dualistic world. There will always be, I believe, good and bad. There cannot be good without bad.
Mhm.
So there will, no matter if we evolve and we reach an age of spiritual awakening, there will always be those who decide not to evolve and decide to continue,
Mhm.
enjoying the pleasures of life or whatever.
Mhm.
So we cannot expect that this does not mean that the whole world will be transformed. No. Those who are in the spiritual path will be able to reach higher dimensions. But those
AJ,
who
can
don't,
you pull up your book before we close out?
I gave it away
Oh, you don't have it in.
recently.
Okay.
I gave my last one away, but I don't know
Where
if you
can
can
it be
edit at
purchased?
the cover. Yes, it can be purchased right now. You can find it in Amazon
Okay.
in ebook and also paperback
Okay.
format, and you can put the link in the description.
Yeah, I'll do that. AJ, I know there'll be people who will be contacting you. They may want more information about the
Okay.
book or whatever. How would you, if you're okay with being contacted, how would
Yes.
you to be contacted?
Well, my email is ajparbooks@gmail.com. And you can also find me in Facebook, AJ Parr, and you'll find me. Also in YouTube, you can type AJ Parr, and you will find my YouTube channel. It's called AJ Parr Spiritual Journalist. So that's how I define myself. And
Okay, so I
I'm
have.
glad you invited me.
Oh, thank
I'm
you so
glad.
much for joining. Thank you for joining. I'll have your email address in the bottom of the screen, and I'll also have your link, your YouTube link in the description box so people can interact with you.
Oh, I
Okay.
want to add something else
Mhm.
quickly. I sent my proposal to IANS for the IANS 2023 conference without expecting to be chosen. But I got a letter saying I was chosen, and I will be hopefully presenting my talk in Washington, D.C. in the 2023 IANS conference.
Congratulations. Congratulations. That's a
Thank
huge
you.
opportunity. That's
Yes, it is.
wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. What date is that?
It begins on August 30th, and I
Mhm.
think it ends on September 3rd.
Okay. Well, congrats that you have an opportunity to
Yeah,
share.
it's an in-person. I have to go there. So that's
Well,
gonna
that'll be
I'm
exciting.
working on that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that'll be exciting. I love that. So if there's anything, do you have anything else you want to share? And if not, I can read you your closing remarks, AJ.
Oh, I did have something I wanted to mention.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it right now.
Okay.
Okay. Lesson 14 of A Course in Miracles. The quiet light in which the Holy Spirit dwells within you is merely perfect openness in which nothing is hidden and therefore nothing is fearful. Lesson 61 says, the truth in everyone is the light of the world. We are all the same light.
Amen. Amen. I love that. I love that. So you read the course?
Yeah, I was into the Course of Miracles. I was attending a group for more than a year, and I like it. I have the book. I always read it. You know, as a comparative religion researcher, I must try to find out to read about everything. You know, but I really like A Course in Miracles, and it's basically about that: discovering your true self, learning that we are one with God, and that this is an illusion.
This is an illusion. That's absolutely it. That's absolutely it. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
So your closing remarks, AJ. AJ, as I was reading your book and read about these beautiful interactions your subjects had with the afterlife, an incredible feeling of peace came over me. Specifically, when I read about people hearing this inner voice from God or Source or the Holy Spirit, whatever language we choose, and this voice either gave them directions of how to survive or told them that everything will be okay. The thought and feeling swept over me that we are really never alone.
Yes.
This line of communication we have with God is always there. We have always been and will always be unconditionally loved by our Creator. And I was surprised that in spite of all the near-death experience accounts I have either heard from other channels or from people I have interacted with myself, that there was still a higher level of understanding and comfort that I acquired from reading your book. I think that my experience speaks to the incredibly pure intention and high vibration that you held throughout the writing of your book and the work that you do on your channel. This was part of your purpose, to come here and contribute to the remembrance of this magnificent love that we all come from and that we are all made of. That's what we are up to. We are all in this process of remembering the true essence of God, which is love. And I bow to you, AJ. I bow to you for all the work you've done to assist the collective in this holy remembrance. So thank you for joining us during this incredible transformational time on this planet right now, for volunteering to add your unique spark of light to our collective ascension. We are honored that you've joined us on this show today. Thank you for your energy, your wisdom, and your love, and your incredible work.
Thank you, Loretta. I bow to you too. Thank you, and be well.
You too. You too. And AJ, we end with a heart. There you go. There you go. I love it. I love it. And everyone, thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this interaction with this wonderful gentleman. And subscribe, like, go to his channel. Let's do this love thing. Let's do this love thing. Everyone,
Yes.
see you later. Bye-bye. Love and light.